It is overtime here at Old Favorite Friday, where we are continuing to talk about a classic and incredible beer, and that beer is Sam Adams Octoberfest Märzen. I brought in Joel Codner, our head brewer, to talk about this beer, and usually what I'll do is when I'm doing these beers, I will walk around, I'll ask the guys in the brewery, basically, hey, who wants to talk about this beer? Who's interested in this? And Joel, you raised your hand real quick. You were like, yeah, I love this beer. What is it about this beer that you enjoy so much?
Well, first, I feel like you always bring me in for the, what I call the duh beers. Like, duh, yeah, we're going to do Sam Adams Oktoberfest. Like, if no one had suggested this, I mean, we should have chosen it anyway because it's terrific. It is classic. It is ubiquitous. It is everywhere. I highly recommend picking one up. This is got to be at everybody's grocery store. And it is just classic, American-made Oktoberfest. Right off the bat, the caramel aroma from this thing blows me away. If you've ever done like baking where you're making real caramel in your own kitchen, it's got that burnt sugar, but in a good way, not burnt, but like that caramelized toffee-like aroma and flavor to it. I mean, the copper color is incredible.
It's a beautiful looking beer.
Yeah, crystal clear, beautiful color. It glows in the glass. I love the minimalist can redesign. It's also in my Chicago Bears colors. So I know you being from Detroit take issue with that.
My Tigers have the same orange. So continue.
But yeah, it can looks great. It's beautiful. We were talking about before we started recording. I like the Sam Adams Perfect Pint Glass UPC code right there. Really cool stuff. I love the redesign. Beer is as great as always.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to love about this beer, and a couple things you touched on which I think are interesting. One, so many of the beers that we do for Old Favorite Fridays are, as you would call, duh beers, because they're incredible beers. The reason why we are featuring them in some way is because we want to make sure that people realize that just because a beer's been around for a long time, just because people have talked about it for years, doesn't mean it's not still great, right? People are looking for the next big thing all the time, and we always want to work that into these videos to make sure people understand why we're featuring these beers. And the other big thing was the fact that you said maybe it was ubiquitous, you said you can get it at every grocery store. That's a big deal, because if you were going out and trying to find a good craft beer, you're going out to meet some friends and you're not at your house and you got to run out and pick up a 6-pack or a 12-pack of beer, there's great beers out there in most grocery stores, right? But there's also places where it's really hard to find really good beers for someone that's in the industry that loves beers that are two style, that isn't for some of the commercial styles that honestly aren't that good, right? That maybe some of your friends that aren't in the beer community are like, oh, look, I brought you this craft beer and this is very popular and you're going to enjoy that. And you look and go, I'm not drinking that, right? Because there are beers out there, we're not going to name any names, but there are beers out there that we are not going to want to drink. To be able to walk into most grocery stores and find this beer at this time of year is really exciting, because I go, oh, I know what I'm getting. I know what I'm going to bring to my friend's house. I know what I'm going to pick up for myself. I picked up a 12-pack of this for myself. I'll be drinking it for the next week or so, and hopefully get at least one more before it goes out of season. And we miss that aspect of something, that just because a beer is ubiquitous doesn't mean it's not good. That is false. Rarity does not mean quality. They can work together, but they are not necessarily synonymous with each other. I love this beer. It was a beer that first introduced me to the style of Märzen. The other day, I was drinking this and I walked down to Joel and to Ralph and Ben in the brewery and said, we're a Belgian style brewery, and I know we've never really made a beer like this because it's just not in our wheelhouse. We do some beers that are outside the Belgian style, IPAs and things like that. But I'm like, can we make one of these? I don't want to just jump on the bandwagon just to have an Oktoberfest because there's a lot of that going on out there as well, that are, some of them are very, very good from some of the local breweries, and some of them kind of missed the mark because they don't seem to kind of know what the beer style is supposed to be. But I just want to have this just to have in our tap room, just so I can drink it for a month or so. And I think it's a really, really great style, and I'm glad that I was introduced to it. What do you think about that, Joe? Are we gonna do it?
Yeah, let's go. I'll mash in right now. It's one of those things where, we've talked about the lager kind of renaissance going on in craft beer, and I'm sure if you have a local neighborhood Oktoberfest going on, whether it's an event, if your local breweries are producing these beers, go get them, because they're great. There's something very I don't know, soothing about it. It's almost like the soul food of beer to me. It's got that, kind of comforting maltiness. That it's got body and structure to it. There's complexity while still remaining simple.
It seems like you're asking this beer to kind of wrap its arms around you and tell you everything's going to be okay.
Listen,
Is that what's
yeah,
happening?
I mean, if I have to pour it all over myself to comfort myself here, but
We just got so many more views with the idea of you pouring beer all over yourself. Please continue.
But yeah, I mean, check out all your local neighborhood breweries and what they're doing with Oktoberfest beers. But when you see this one, don't pass it up. This is classic. It is excellent. It is high quality. You're not gonna be disappointed in this one.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Joel, thank you very much for joining me. Everybody, please click, subscribe, like, do all the things that you would normally do on a YouTube channel. Please check out some of our other videos. Joel's here a lot with me talking about these beers, these duh beers, as you called them so eloquently earlier on, which has to be a thing that we'll use going forward at this point. But please check us out. See all the different beers we're talking about. Support your local breweries. Support the classic beers that we have all grown to know and love because they're classic for a reason. We'll see you next week. Cheers.
Cheers.